Hi, everybody. Michelle here. Hey, I hope you're having a wonderful day. Let me just share with you very briefly this morning. We're talking about this idea of how do you handle a crisis, right? So, last week I had several conversations with business leaders, and as I'm recording this, we're still dealing with the pandemic, right? Here where I live in mid Michigan, things are starting to open up, but very cautiously and very slowly, right? So, these business leaders I've been talking to, the tough times are really, a lot of money issues, right? Staffing issues. So, having a hard time getting staff coming back after that unemployment, right? Even having sales issues, right? There's this general understanding that some people are making great decisions and saying, now's the time to invest, now's the time to build my business. And other people are struggling with mindset a little bit and not wanting to make any investments in the future because they're not sure if they're going to be able to really cover them, right? And as the pandemic has really gone on, it's gotten tougher. And you will always have a choice. Okay? You will always have a choice. So one of the mindset principles that I talk about often with my coaching clients is that when you have too much tension or too much motivation or too much anxiety to get a certain outcome, right? You're married to the outcome or result rather than your participation to that result. So for example, I shared a story, an example the other day. I was having a conversation with somebody and it wasn't going the best, okay? Because sometimes that happens, right? And I realized, what's my role in this? My role in this is not to convince that person. My role is not to have them agree with me. My role is to show up, okay? And so I showed up in the conversation. I listened. I paused. I asked great questions. Now, in the end, this person decided to pretty much go off and do whatever they wanted to do anyway, right? And I have to honor that. And I had to look at that experience and say, you know what? I might not have gotten the result that I was hoping for. I showed up, okay? Because sometimes you can do all the right things and not get the result that you want. All right, so when you have too much tension, motivation, and that anxiety for the results, what happens is you end up jamming what we call our success mechanism. So in your subconscious brain, you have a failure mechanism and a success mechanism. So these are your patterns, your thoughts, your behaviors, I guess your patterns of thinking, right? So your pattern says, follow this process and you'll lead to success. Follow this process and you'll lead to failure. Okay? When you have tension and anxiety, you jam that mechanism so it cannot work for your good. Okay? One of the things that I've taught a lot of my coaching clients when they're dealing with sales. And I started this, I don't even know why the first time I did it, but honestly, I've done it hundreds of times since then, and it's always fun. So let's say somebody's coming to me and they're like, Michelle, I've got to make the sale, right? Especially during this COVID-19 crisis. How do I pivot my business and how do I sell well so that I can make sure that I am, taking care of my stuff? Okay, great. So this is typically what we do. So first of all, acknowledging that this person has a lot of anxiety, trying to make sure that they live a safe existence, okay? And I don't want to make light of that. However, I've really been focusing lately on a quote, and it says, "Don't be careful, you could hurt yourself." Okay, so let me say that again in case you missed it. Don't be careful, you could hurt yourself. And when it comes to this sales process, I find people do this a lot, that they try to be careful. They try to do everything they possibly can to make that sale. And in the end, what happens is they've communicated to the person who they're trying to sell to that they're desperate. Okay? That doesn't help. Because if you are desperate, then you're not in a place to serve that other person, and they can tell. And they're looking to make a sales transaction with somebody who they know, they like, and they trust. And it's very hard to trust a desperate person. Okay? So, the activity that we do is we say, I'll give you an example of the very first person I tried this with. A lady who had transitioned out of a corporate job where she was doing corporate training, and she had a severance package and everything. She was retiring, and she was going into her own business. She wanted to start training other people, just not in a corporate setting. So she said, Michelle, I've got to make money. I'm living on my severance package right now, but I've got to start bringing in money. Great, we can work with that. So, long story short, what happened was, she told me all the things that she was doing to make the sale. And of course, I'm noticing, okay, tension, anxiety, right? And so I said, okay, we're going to change the rules of the game here. So instead of going out and trying to get, let's say for this example, 10 yeses. So you go out this week and your goal is, if I get 10 people to say yes to this training, I know that I'm going to make a go of it. Okay, great. Instead of getting 10 yeses, what I want you to do is I want you to go out and I want you to get 10 no's. Now, immediately, anytime I do this with somebody, the very first thing that they say, Michelle, I don't think you understand. I said, no, I understand. Here's why. When you go out and you are practicing having a great conversation with somebody, listening to them, really understanding how can I best serve this person, you communicate to your potential client, you know me, you like me, and you trust me, okay? You can always follow that up afterwards with another sales conversation about, hey, this is what I can offer for you, right? But if you go into that conversation knowing, I am not here to get a yes, I am here to have that great conversation, you're probably going to make a sale more times than not. So what typically happens is we go out and with the client, we say, okay, let's make your plan this week. One thing that I find a lot of times the clients, if they're focused on the yes, they'll only schedule out 10 appointments, right? So 10 phone calls, 10 meetings. And, guess what? If you're going to go talk to 10 people, you're probably not going to get 10 yeses, okay? And then they start to kind of get in their head a little bit and, really tell themselves that they can't do this, right? And of course, more and more desperation, that doesn't help. So when we go out with the intent to find 10 no's, they tend to schedule out more meetings, more appointments. And when they go out in this spirit of, I'm not there for a yes, I'm there for a great conversation, guess what happens? Every single time, guess what happens? They start to get yeses. Now, they might not get 10 yeses like they want the first week, maybe not even the first month, but pretty soon they realize the power behind not focusing on that result that they want and focusing on the things that lead to the result, right? So what can I actually do that leads to that, okay? Without fail, every time I've done this with a coaching client, the same thing has always happened. They come back the first week and I say, how many no's did you get? And they'll tell me, oh, I got 6 no's, or I got 8 no's, or, maybe they got the 10 no's, right? So their goal was to get 10 no's, and they're so happy, I got 10 no's, right? And then I say, okay, great. How many yeses did you have? Every time I've done this, they've gotten 2, 3, maybe even 6 yeses the first week. And I'm like, what did you notice? Right? Because you see, it's not necessarily, again, focusing on that outcome. And sometimes we just got to get out of our head, right? So there's 3 really quick things that I can suggest to you today. First of all, just relax. Okay, let your brain off the hook. If you get to a point in your life, in any area of your life, that you are experiencing resistance for some reason, okay, you need to take a break, okay? The second thing, pausing will never hurt you, okay? Unless you're in a life and death situation, and then don't worry about it. Your survival mechanism will kick in, okay? But don't turn things into a life and death situation. So when you go on a sales call, guess what? That is not a life and death situation. Stop telling yourself the story that, making this sale is going to make your life perfect, and not making the sale is going to make your life something less than perfect, okay? The story is what's hurting you, all right? Pausing, taking some deep breaths, saying, hey, what am I about when I go on this sales call here, right? And then, you know what? Practice. The third thing is practice before it's a do or die situation. So let me speak to those people who are looking to maybe jump out and do a side gig, or maybe turn their side gig into something that's full time. Please, please, please work with somebody in your transition. Do not just jump off a cliff and hope that everything turns out okay. All right? There are things that you can do to practice and get really good at whatever your side gig is before it becomes a situation where you have to support yourself, your family, your livelihood. Okay? So relax, pause, and practice. Now, let me speak to those leaders here for a moment, because let's face it, how you kind of develop yourself personally and the level of tension and anxiety that you have for the results for not just you, but for your team directly affects how your team will perform. So when you have the opportunity to show up in a way that is peaceful, that is relaxed, that says, hey, listen, whatever is going to happen is going to be just fine. We're going to take care of it, right? And you communicate that kind of a spirit to your people, guess what? You are more likely as a team to reach the result that you want. Okay. Now, this last thing that I found very interesting in my study this week, the word crisis is actually a Greek word, and there's two kind of meanings to it. One is decisiveness, and the other is a point of decision. Okay. So we tend to think of crisis, especially right now, we've got COVID-19 and all of the various crises that surround that. But I love that it's a point of decision. Right? That a crisis is not something that should be shied away from. It's not something that should be ignored. It should be accepted. And when you choose really, to say, you know what do I want? What do I want for me? What do I want for my people? And how can we move that forward? You can use it to your advantage, because the key to any crisis situation is you. All right? Hey, I hope this has been helpful for you today. I hope this kind of got you thinking about, just how you approach things, how you approach your need for results and your outcomes in your life, and especially got you thinking about, how do I show up for my people? All right? So with that, I release you into the wild. Go forth and prosper. Have an amazing day, and we'll catch you next time. All right, bye-bye.